Swine flu, pirate attacks, 2 wars, oh yes, and the worst economic meltdown since World War II. Those are just a few of the things that President Obama has to deal with during his first 100 days in office. In a role that sometimes makes juggling chainsaws look easy, the President marked today's milestone with a town hall meeting, a shortly of a primetime press conference carried by this network and most others. So, what's the verdict on the presidency so far? Our North America editor Justin Webb has this report.
On the road again, 100 days into his presidency, the obvious place to go, the heartland, Missouri, where the state animal is the mule, strong and stubborn. The presidential message, it's tough, but on all fronts, we're getting there.
The 100th day might be a good time to reflect on where we are, but it's more important to where we're going that we focus on the future, because we can't rest until our economy is growing and we've built that new foundation for our prosperity.
Inauguration Day, January the 20th. More than 1 million people gathered here in the National Mall, all of them hoping that this presidency would make an immediate difference, the kind of difference that the candidate had been promising.
3 days away from change in the United States of America. In 2 days, you can put an end to the politics that would divide a nation just to win an election. We are 1 day away from changing the United States of America.
So, 100 days in, is this man an ideologue driven by a left-wing worldview? Some say yes. And they point to the handshake with Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez and the European tour in which he talked of American arrogance. His critics say America's adversaries, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, are being emboldened by Barack Obama's gut instincts.
I think their reading of the first 100 days of the Obama administration is this is a weak president who does not threaten us, and accordingly we can do pretty much what we want.
And yet, in many ways, Obama can claim to be a pragmatist. He has not nationalized the banks. He's not fully bailed out the car industry. On stem cell research, he's acted to encourage it in the face of opposition from religious leaders, but he's left the details to others. He is comfortable in the middle ground. How about the mistakes? Well, there have been a few. Perhaps the biggest, the decision to back this man, Tom Daschle, as the choice for health secretary, although he hadn't paid all his taxes. Mr. Daschle had to go, and the president was bruised.
Today was an embarrassment for us. I screwed up. This was a self-induced injury. I screwed up.
So what now for Obama and the world?
Of course, you have to deal with the crises of the day, and you have to tackle the problems that surface every day. But one also needs to be looking certainly above the horizon to where you're headed and where you want to be.
It's all about strategic thinking and engagement, a desire to grapple with every conceivable problem right here, right now. Few Americans doubt that this presidency, when the time comes for proper judgment, will be of huge consequence. Justin Webb, BBC News, Washington.
Well, here to help us assess the President's performance thus far and the challenges which lie ahead are our Washington correspondent Katty Kay and Jonathan Capehart, editorial writer for The Washington Post. Thanks both for coming in. Let's start with you, Jonathan. The world has fallen in love with Barack Obama. Much of America has fallen in love with him. We know how political love affairs end. They tend to end in tears. But are they right to be in love with him?
Well, I would think so. At the 100-day mark, I think President Obama has pretty much delivered on what he said he would do as candidate Obama, which is pursue a very aggressive agenda, a far-reaching agenda to move the country in a different direction with different leadership.
But he's done so with a kind of reassuring smile on his face and a pat on the back. I mean, you could argue, could you not, that he's trying to rearrange the political furniture of this country quite dramatically. But it doesn't sound like that when he talks.
No, he's trying to be as unthreatening to everybody as possible, trying to not alienate groups on the left and on the right, although there are polls that suggest he's also a very polarizing president. I think his most striking achievement, Matt, in the last 100 days is this sense that he has instilled in the country of confidence that things might not be perfect now, but they are at least moving in the right direction. There's an ABC poll came out recently that showed 50% of Americans now feel the country is on the right track. That compares to something like 8% around the time of election. And I think that's thanks to Obama.
But if you look at the opinion polls of the first 100-day obsession, I mean, he's not far ahead of any of his predecessors. I mean, he's more or less in the same sort of bracket. Are there any mistakes that he's made so far, Jonathan?
Oh, there are plenty of
serious mistakes.
Well, serious mistakes. I don't think so. Nothing that's been threatening. But let's look at these polls. Now, yes, he's around the same level as his predecessors. But when we look at the swing in right track, wrong track numbers, that's the key. He's gone through an economic meltdown, the AIG bailout mess. He's gone through all sorts of other things that everyone thought would knock him off stride. Yet the American people have stayed with him. And in fact, as these controversies, many controversies come up, his poll numbers seem to either stay steady or go even higher. And I think it's because, as Kathy said, you know, he deals with these issues with a smile on his face, but he instills such confidence in the American people that they're willing to go along with him. They don't know if any of this stuff will work, but they're willing to go along.
But at some stage, he needs results, doesn't he? Because although he's inherited a mess, he will have ownership of that mess in the next 100 days.
Right, and getting back to what you asked about whether he's made mistakes, and I think if there is not a turnaround in the economy, and let's face it, that is going to be the one thing that his legacy is based on, is whether he can revive the American economy. If that turnaround doesn't come fairly soon, it could be that we look back at this 100 days and say, you know what, his biggest mistake was talking about glimmers of hope and green shoots in the economy prematurely, because that made him take ownership of the economic crisis. It became harder then to blame all of this on the previous president.
But to some extent, he will have ownership of that crisis anyway, because he's the guy in charge. But to what extent, Jonathan, do you think he is a gambler? I mean, gambler is the kind of term that we used to use about George Bush, not about Barack Obama. But is he a gambler?
Of course he's a gambler, huge gambler. I like to describe the way the president has been leading is that he has taken everything and thrown it up against the wall. Healthcare reform? Yeah, let's do it. Save the economy? Sure. Cap and trade? Absolutely. Immigration reform? Why not? Knowing full well that by the end of this year, a lot of those things might not happen. He might have some victories, but I think he's looking at the calendar. He knows that if he doesn't make significant progress on his agenda at the end of this year, it might not happen by the end of his term because of midterm elections and then the 2012 elections.
Quickly, one to both of you, if I may. Is there anything you've learned in the last 100 days that you didn't know about him before? First,
I didn't think he was going to be this bold a president. I was writing down a list of all the things he's taken on, and I had to turn the page. And the reason we have all been so busy is because he has been so active. I never thought that he would take on everything that he has at quite such speed.
Quick one to you, finally, Jonathan. Has he got what it takes to become one of the great presidents? I know it's early days, but do you think he does?
Sure, he does, because of the circumstances in which he became president. Great presidents become great presidents because they face tremendous leadership opportunities and potential obstacles, and he's got the biggest one of all, a financial meltdown not seen since the Great Depression.
We'll be certainly covering his presidency, perhaps not with the 200-day sting, but we'll, you know, something like that we'll think of. Both of you, thank you very much for coming in. Jonathan Capehart, Katty Cape. The American network CBS has a correspondent named Mark Noller. Long assigned to cover the White House, he's made it his business to become a walking encyclopedia of obscure facts about presidencies. And the young Obama administration has not escaped his math skills. By his count, in his first 100 days, Barack Obama has given 115 speeches, 47 of them using a teleprompter. He's visited 9 foreign countries and 11 U.S. states. He's taken 50 flights on his Marine One chopper and 36 on his Air Force One jet. He has added $563 billion to the national debt and held a grand total of 1 cabinet meeting. And we have our own numbers game tonight in pictures. Here are Obama's 100 days in 100 seconds.
Obama! I, Barack Hussein Obama.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Let's go change America.
This is a new era.
Guantanamo will be closed. There you go.
It's a plan that will save or create 3.5 million jobs.
The stimulus bill is huge. Nothing on this scale has been tried before.
In his first major military decision, 17,000 extra military personnel will be deployed to Afghanistan.
For America's stem cell scientists, a better future has come suddenly into focus.
I believe we have been given the capacity and will to pursue this research.
The United States wants the Islamic Republic of Iran to take its rightful place in the community of nations.
The London summit will be, I believe, a turning point in our pursuit of global economic recovery.
It's almost over.
It is time for us to transition to the Iraqis. We can start bringing our folks home. Happy Easter.
Barack Obama took a small but symbolic step. He lifted restrictions on Cuban Americans visiting relatives and sending money home.
Beau is now the presidential pooch, America's top dog.
What do you think, Moya?
I love him. Yeah, they're perfect.
He's perfect.
100 days and 100 seconds. And to find out much more on President Obama's first 100 days in office, make sure to go to our BBC website, find a global view of how the Obama administration is being received, and there's also a presidential report card. It's all there along with an audio slideshow at bbc.com/news.